So good evening, everyone. According to the traditional account, many of you know the story of the life of the Buddha. The traditional account, after the Buddha attained his enlightenment, it's said as he's walking down a road, the first person he came in contact with um, felt some kind of presence about the Buddha. I've met a few people in my life where I've been able to, it's a handful, but it's hard to describe, but there was a palpable felt sense, something, a presence with that person. So the Buddha must have had a pretty profound presence. And the person asked him, what are you? And he says, are you some kind of, I don't remember exactly, like a god? The Buddha said, no, no, no. Are you a person? No, I'm not a person. He says, well, what are you? And the Buddha's answer was, I am awake. And the word Buddha, the root, the Bud, means awake. So the word Buddha means awakened one. So that's one formulation of this Dharma path is leading towards awakening, and there are awakening experiences we can have. Many of us have had awakening experiences. Sometimes they can be quite dramatic. Other times, maybe not so much, but that term could apply. So this goal in Dharma is sometimes talked about as coming to an awakening. Well, you'll hear the term liberation, freedom, enlightenment is a word that's used a lot. My wife is in a Qigong tradition, and in there they use the term to become realized. So to me, that has a connotation. I don't know exactly what they mean, but similar to awakening. And so we'll each have our own sense about these different terms, how we relate to them, what they mean for us, and what we each want for ourselves. I assume, I hope all of us do want to move in the direction of liberating our hearts and minds, right? Coming to what we call freedom. What does that mean? More wakefulness. All of these Dharma qualities, we wouldn't be here if we wouldn't practice in the ways we are, if we didn't want to strengthen these wholesome, these good, beautiful qualities and keep growing in these directions. If that is important for us, then what the Dharma is, what these teachings is calling us to do is, it's no small thing. And it's actually asking everything of us. We're not just fooling around. If we really want to come to something we call awakening or liberation, or if you like the word enlightenment, these words, the term enlightenment can, for so many people, feel very far away and something maybe we can't really relate to. Maybe somebody living on the mountaintop or something like that, and very remote from my own experience. But the idea is that there is a path of cultivation that's leading, but that the practice and the fruit is considered to be right here. And we don't want to. I want to talk a little about this idea of not holding it as something far away, even though, of course, we still have the places where we fall into suffering, where we create suffering for ourselves, for others, and that's still there. But still, the potential of liberation, freedom, really for all of us. And I know a lot of people might hear, they go, yeah, but no, you don't understand. That might be good for you, but for me, I'm too, and then fill in what the blanks. I'm too wounded, I'm too broken, I've got too many, the patterns in me are too deep. And we have a whole story that we live out of. And there may be a lot of evidence to support a story like that, right? Because we do keep falling back into our old patterns and we keep trying and struggling. So I understand that it's not that we can magically, snap our fingers and those things evaporate away. So that's kind of what I want to explore a little bit. What is this idea that awakening could come right now? In one of the old Zen traditions, I think maybe the Chinese Zen, Chan traditions, you'll hear this idea, what they call sudden awakening gradual development. And the idea there is that even if you have some very powerful, what we'll call awakening experiences, enlightenment experiences, those things can and do happen for sure, that can all just transform us powerfully. But then we still, after those peak experiences, we still have then the long path of the work still needs to be done. And I think Jack Kornfield captured this in his book called After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. And you can get the sense of that just from the title of the book. So in the spirit of this, then, what is, sometimes I'll speak of it in terms that may sound a little odd. I think, well, what is the Dharma asking of us? That's probably, I like to think of it that way, but some people find that a little odd. Is the Dharma asking for anything for us? Maybe not really. But what are the teachings? What's being offered to us maybe as an opportunity if we want to take it up? And if we really want to take up this path of awakening, of liberation, of freedom, then you can dip your little toe in the water, you can stand up to your ankles, you can wade a little deeper, but the more we get in and we start to see the fruit, there's something compelling and it draws us. And at some point we find ourselves more and more immersed as Dharma teachings and the fruits of Dharma become more alive. And at some point, it really asks everything of us. Well, what does that mean? What it means is, in order to live in a way where your heart never closes off, it means every time we find our hearts closing off, right then we are being called upon. I mean, we're putting ourselves in it. It's not like some force, but if we really have given ourselves over to this path and we're in the flow of the Dharma is taking us, then right there is the time to stop. Every time, regardless of how we feel. You don't have to physically stop, but I'm just talking about in our minds. And you turn and you open your heart right there to that person. And it's not even dependent upon whether they deserve it or not. I know that's a funny way to think, whether they deserve it, but it can feel that way. Sometimes in the ordinary, everyday course of conversations, when we're, it's not hard to bring people to mind, whether it's maybe people in your more immediate circle or expand the circle. Maybe it's in our society, maybe it's some of our political leaders, whatever. It's not hard to find people who have challenging aspects to them, right? But in the service of liberating our hearts, we want to not bring our consideration, our view, our opinion about whether they're deserving or whether we even feel like it. We stop and we open our hearts in love. And you do it. Over time, we learn more and more how to do it in an authentic way that's not fake. However, we will all find times when we go to do that, it doesn't work so well. That's all right too. We bring that in and we include that. So when I say you meet someone, by the way, I'm coming off a little, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I've been reflecting on this. Really what I feel just for myself is the draw of the level that is being, the invitation that's there and the possibility in which we can operate. And when that comes alive for us, if it comes alive for you, you have to feel it out for yourself. It can bring an ardency in us. Sometimes people will use the word of a spiritual urgency. I don't really like that word much personally. It's a great word if we hold it in the proper perspective, but it can make, that urgency can, I prefer to think of it as a spiritual aliveness, an actual living aliveness in that moment, a living experience in that moment. Urgency can have more of an agitated feeling to it, which I don't know if that's always the best feeling. But when it comes alive like that, then yes, for me, if the heart closes off, and it's all dependent on mindfully knowing what's happening. If we're caught up, obviously, just caught, we're on automatic pilot, we don't know what's happening, well, then you don't have a choice in that time. So we can't worry about that. But the times of resting and wakeful, knowing what's happening, as many of us, maybe all of us as practitioners know, grows and it strengthens. And that power of wakefulness, right? Isn't it true? It does carry through without necessarily having to do anything. It's just it's just a fruit of the practices we do. It does grow. And, but we are where we're at with it in any moment. But the times when you know what's happening, that's the time. And it's not determined by how we feel. Matter of fact, that's a great learning right there, to do the exercise, turn again, whether it's physically or in your mind, and open your heart in love to the person or to the situation. I'm going to talk in a minute to yourself also is included in this. For some of us, that's especially hard to do, right? If it's hard to love ourselves, if we have a hard critic, difficult critic, self-judging, we can't let go of our suffering around ourselves or something like that, it can be especially hard, and that's true for many people. So in whatever situation arrives, ourselves, others, or it's not even another person, it's a situation, yes, we're called upon to stop, open the heart and love. Now, what's going to happen? Sometimes just by doing that, we're in touch with the aliveness of our sincere intent. And I like to think it's an aspiration that comes alive in the moment. Aspiration, that word sometimes for me can have a connotation of, it's an aspiration, but it's kind of out there in the future. I don't know how it lands for you. But in any case, it becomes alive. There's an immediacy to it. And just the wishing to, just the wanting to, just the can I, right there, you're in a wholesome state of mind. Even if there had been unwholesome, the fact that you would be wanting, willing, actually making the effort to shift into love right there in the face of not wanting to, and even when it's difficult, you've already shifted an unwholesome, in my book, into a wholesome state of mind. But then, does the heart open, or do we find we can't do it? Well, that's when the other half of the equation comes in. We want to open ourselves into the higher good, our higher good nature, the nature of our own being, the inner beauty of our own hearts and minds, bringing all that to bear. But also then, if we do that, and then the present moment teaches us by showing us, well, it's hard to do, I'm kind of struggling, I can't find the way. Well, then we flow with what the teacher is offering then, and the next step is then we may need to, instead of struggling to try and make it crack open in a positive way, we may have to then turn towards, well, what's the block? What's making it hard? And then the other whole half, the entire half of Dharma practice, I've been talking about the side that's like aiming towards the positive, the wholesome, we call it, the beautiful states of our heart and mind. We may need to right then turn back to the difficult parts of ourselves. And that's when we do healing work. It takes many, many forms, but maybe it's psychotherapy even, which I think actually has an important place for many of us, and not necessarily everyone in Dharma practice. All the practices we need to do, the healing, disentangling is a word I like, these patterns that catch us. And it's not going to happen instantly, but we take a long-term view. We have to bring a sense of patience in with this also. It's not going to happen in one day. Things can shift in a day, of course. We all know that. But generally, we're looking at shifts that happen over time. But just by bringing the patience and the willingness then, rather than, so before it was, okay, here's a difficult person, right then we know what to do. Shift it to love in a way that's not fake. you know what? I actually think there can be times when we are kind of faking it, but that can be okay too, because we're trying to kind of inhabit that that body of love, if you will. So we kind of take it on and we try. But we're doing just as good a work then when it's now to know, and we learn over time, oh, I need to turn and now bring some investigation or inquiry, or maybe just learning to quiet our minds a little bit and let go, and all these different tools to help heal up the difficult patterns. And so we move and flow back and forth between um, opening and love when we need to. Again, I keep saying it this way, but I'm saying it this way on purpose. You just do it. Don't let your opinion or how you feel dictate that. For all of us, moods come and go. I spoke, I think it was last night, I was speaking about causes and conditions. They come from their own causes and conditions, and oftentimes it's not clear to us what was the cause. Moods can just come and go on their own. If you've ever had the experience, it happens to me. Some mornings I wake up and feeling pretty good, and other mornings I wake up and I haven't even started the day, and I might feel like, oh, geez, what's going on with that? But we can know that these are just mind states that come and go. So they may be giving us important information. We don't want to invalidate our experience when we need to listen. Well, what's this about? Why am I feeling a little depressed? Or, gee, I'm happy. What were the causes to that? No, we want to tend to those things for sure. So they're important, and they're just, at the same time, they are just mind states. They're empty. They come and go. They don't last, and we don't often know. They come in their own time and in their own way. And if we let our moods dictate our attitudes and how we're going to meet other people and whether we want to open our hearts in love or not, then right there we've given away our power, if you will. We've given away control over our own liberation over to moods. So we have to be on the lookout for that, right? So in this way, as we move back and forth, I think over time, hopefully we all will, in fact, I know we all will. We need patience, but we will all come to know more clearly and recognize when we're on the side of opening into the love, when we're on the side of untangling the knots that are preventing us from opening, and how to do it. And this comes with time and experience. That's why we need a lot of patience and kindness for ourselves. And if you can't find the patience and kindness for yourself, well, that as much as any time, maybe more, maybe we need to get external help often. We need support. All of us can use support. We have our inner strengths, and we need, here we're together. We've come together as a group tonight, a Sangha community, just hanging out, meditating together as a support. So we need to find what supports us. But, it can be discouraging when we see, our same patterns hanging on. I shared, I think last week, or I don't know, maybe before the online retreat happened, about I had fallen into some despair a few weeks ago because after all these years of practicing, I had this idea of perfecting love. I don't think I'm doing so terribly, but I can have ill will arise in my mind, and I try to, mostly work with it in exactly the way I'm describing here. But I just felt I got caught, and went right into clinging to an identity that and was a suffering identity around everything that's wrong with me. Gosh, after all these years, and you're still aren't in a perfect, unbroken flow of love somehow. I don't know, just something like that, right? And it can feel like that sometimes. But then what we see is it's not about getting. That's just I was fell into despair because my mind and life wasn't giving me what I wanted. Well, it's not about getting what I want, right? I may get into this I won't be leading. I think Kevin's going to lead the group tomorrow night. I'll be back the next night on Wednesday. The same idea of how we want to turn to let go into love. Just the kind of the reverse side of, I guess, the same coin, if you want to think of it like that, is letting go into from clinging. It's the same idea, the same thing. I had fallen into a clinging. And, in the moment I was a little caught in it. And once I saw what happened, I could let go around it because all that had happened is that it wasn't about, um, you know, how, uh, how much you freed yourself from your conditioned patterns, um, and how much you still get caught. It's really, one way to think of it is I hope this doesn't sound too odd. It's really not any of our business. What I mean by that is, actually, it reminds me of this simile or from Ajahn Chah that I really love. I want to offer it to you. He was comparing Dharma practice to growing a chili bush. And he said, if you want to grow a chili bush, what you do is uh, you prepare the soil, you plant the seed, you water it, you make sure you protect it from insects and weeds and make sure it gets the right amount of sunlight. And you do everything you do, so you're doing your part. What you're really doing is setting up the right supportive conditions. But you can't make it grow. How fast it grows, that's up to nature. You've done your part, what you can do. And he says, how fast it grows, and that's just not your business. And so you pay attention to the part that's up to you, that you can do. So our part is to do the part that we can do, which to keep aiming ourselves and applying ourselves in a good way, without tying ourselves into a knot, or just try to keep some love in our heart the best we can. Try to let go when we notice we're stressed. Again, we do the best we can, not always easy. But then we let go of the over striving and it's kind of a cliche when we say let go of the attachment to the results, but that's really what it's talking about. And so Ajahn Chah went on to say, when we go to meditate, we expect, you expect the plant to grow, flower, and produce chilies in one day. And, he says you can't go stretching on the leaves, trying to make it grow faster. So I think if we hold that attitude, it can be very supportive, so that we're all in. I hope. I'll just give you one more image about this thing about being all in. Some of you have heard me share that I do not hold the idea of enlightenment. I don't think like that in my own mind. I think the ideas of it are quite beautiful. All these words, awakening, enlightenment, but sort of these ultimate final sense that we can get in our minds about it, I don't really hold in my own heart. I'm not. It can have a sense of taking us out of ourselves into something down the road out there. That's how it is for me. You may hold it, very differently. But the place where I just kind of let that go. But that doesn't mean I've let myself go, or life go, or where I'm trying to aim go. The place where I'm all in, just to use the phrase I just used, was in what's actually happening in the present moment. There I'm all in. And I'm not interested in, I don't want to be led around by all my wounded places, all the conditioned patterns of my mind that haven't necessarily always served me that well. When my heart closes off to love, my job is to stop. And that's what I do when I remember. I still have places where I can space out. But after all these years, I've been pretty pleased with the practice, and its practice serves us well. And so knowing what's happening, I do stop, whether it's metaphorical stopping or just my mind. It doesn't, again, I don't know how it manifests externally. Um, and I go to love. I do exactly what I was saying. And we get better and better where you can really let go and just let the heart open right there. And if I can't, that's my teacher. What's holding me back? Just what I was saying. I'm all in on that. And we don't have to then, this is where it goes back to what I was saying earlier, this idea of enlightenment, awakening, realization, liberation, freedom. They're all beautiful terms. Um, um, it doesn't have to be far away, and it can come right back here. And in the way I'm speaking of it, it's not dependent on how well or poorly you manifest or you judge yourself to manifest at any time. It's in the doing and bringing the best we can. I feel is the full manifestation. Same thing about letting go of our clinging. So we can kind of get the best of, this is an image I used on the online retreat for those of you who were there, of we're on a path that's both going somewhere, we're trying to get somewhere and go nowhere at all at the same time. And I like that idea a lot. Yes, I hope we're aiming ourselves in a direction of ever more freedom of our hearts and minds. Yet we get there with the attitude of not trying to get anywhere, but what's the quality we bring here? And which is all we can do anyway. So thank you for your kind attention.